we go. Colleagues, thank you very much for being here. This time of the afternoon, we've got the great pleasure to welcome again to Geneva and to the Information Service Mr. Philippe Lazzarini, the UNRWA Commissioner General, for an update on the work of UNRWA across its area of operation, Lebanon, Jordan, Syria, the occupied West Bank, including East Jerusalem, and the Gaza Strip. As usual, CG Lazzarini will give some introductory remarks, and then we will take a few questions. Philippe.
Thank you so much. Always a pleasure to be here. Just had a long member state briefing, and I thought it was also important to meet with the press. So as Alessandra indicated, I will start with first by delivering my remark, but after that, of course, we'll go in the Q&A. So in my meeting with the member state, I stress that it has been almost 10 days since the State of Israel banned the entry of humanitarian aid and commercial supplies into the Gaza Strip. Somehow, situation similar to the one which prevailed in October 2023. This decision threatens the life and survival of civilians in Gaza, who have had only a brief respite from 16 months of brutal war. The ceasefire agreement has shown that whenever there is a political will, humanitarian assistance can be unhindered and uninterrupted. Between the beginning of the ceasefire and March 2, humanitarian assistance increased tenfold. It is critical that the aid is allowed into Gaza again to maintain the progress made during the first phase of the ceasefire and meet people's basic needs. I also echo the call of the Secretary General for the immediate, unconditional and dignified release of all hostages, the dignified release of Palestinian detainees as previously agreed, and for the ceasefire to hold. I think it's important also to shed light of the situation in the West Bank. In the West Bank, the operation by the Israeli security forces, which started 6 weeks ago, is severely impacting Palestinians, especially in the north. Palestinian armed groups are also increasingly active in the area. Several refugee camps have been nearly emptied, displacing around 40,000 Palestinian refugees. This is the largest displacement of Palestinians in the West Bank since 1967. The large-scale demolition of buildings, including residential areas, is alarming. People have nowhere to return to. UNRWA continues to track displaced people and provide humanitarian aid, including food, healthcare, and basic items. In Syria, we have witnessed over the last few days terrible violence. One of our staff was also tragically caught up in the crossfire. We continue in the country to provide healthcare and education, which for many Palestinian refugees are absolutely essential for their survival. And in Lebanon, the socio-economic crisis have increased the reliance of Palestinian refugees on UNRWA services. We just did a survey, and basically we have seen that the UNRWA cash distribution to Palestinian refugees has become one of the main sources of income for 70% of the Palestinian refugees in the country. Now, talking about the Knesset law. The Knesset legislation, that's what I briefed the member state, is not just about UNRWA. This is about any individual or organization calling for adherence to international humanitarian law or promoting the right of Palestinians. When a number of international NGOs have already been silenced, there is now a larger concerted effort in Israel to undermine or restrict through legislative measures the operation of international organizations and NGOs. The agency has faced serious operational challenges since the Israeli parliament anti-UNRWA legislation came into force at the end of January. In the occupied East Jerusalem, the agency is facing increased pressure from the municipality to vacate premises and end service provision. International staff have been effectively expelled from the occupied West Bank due to the lack of valid visa. While some international staff remain in Gaza, Israel refuses to facilitate their entry or exit via Kerem Shalom. Despite these challenges, UNRWA will stay and deliver on its General Assembly mandate until it is no longer possible to do so in a principled manner. For example, since the ceasefire began in Gaza, we have provided food to 2 million people, opened nearly 40 new emergency shelters, and provided over 60,000 people with tents. Our health team supported the polio vaccination campaign last month, reaching nearly 200,000 children below the age of 10. Through temporary learning space and remote learning, we are also reaching children with education. As an anecdote, we have opened registration for distance learning for the children in Gaza beginning of January. 3 weeks later, we had more than 250,000 children having registered. And today, 70% of them are having distance learning through a digital platform. In the West Bank, nearly 50,000 children go to the agency school, and hundreds of thousands of people rely on our health services. I must highlight again here the disinformation campaign portraying the agency as a terrorist organization and our staff as terrorist or terrorist sympathizer. I do believe that, talking to an audience of journalists, that checking facts and reporting through first-hand official sources is a foundation of independent reporting and key to countering this vicious campaign. This is especially critical given the prolonged ban on independent international media in Gaza. There have been no independent international media in Gaza since October 2023. So I continue to urge you, representative of the media, to do more to get into Gaza to cover untold stories and verify information. I ask the same to member states to help journalists to have access to Gaza. When it comes to funding, UNRWA situation, I mean, you would be surprised if I would tell you that everything is under control. It is obviously critical and precarious. The cash flow is managed monthly, and we urgently require additional financial support if the agency is to survive. Now, just to conclude and to tell you what has been the ask today and over the last few weeks, this is a time of tremendous geopolitical uncertainty. For UNRWA, the statu quo is no longer an option, but we have a choice to make, these member states, international community. We can allow the agency to implode due to the fierce disinformation campaign, the Knesset legislation, and the suspension of funding by key donors. Collapse, I believe, would create a dangerous vacuum in the occupied Palestinian territory and send shockwaves through Jordan, Lebanon, and Syria. An environment in which children are deprived of education and people lack access to basic services is fertile ground for exploitation and extremism, and this is a threat to peace and stability in the region and beyond. Alternatively, UNRWA can be supported to progressively conclude its mandate within the framework of a political process like that championed by Saudi Arabia, the European Union, and the League of Arab States through the Global Alliance for the implementation of the two-state solution. The agency, would this be the case, would then gradually transition its public life services to empowered and prepared Palestinian institutions. And this would preserve the right of Palestinian refugees and their access to basic services. I have also repeatedly stressed that dismantling the agency abruptly will only deepen the suffering of Palestinian refugees, but it will not cancel the refugee statute. The rights of Palestinian refugees exist independently of the agency. So if UNRWA ceases to protect and assist Palestinian refugees, their right will not only remain, but there will be much greater emphasis on the right to return or to be resettled, for which UNRWA has no mandate. So to conclude, the main ask to member states has been sustain UNRWA until the political direction of travel is clear. That is, until the international community considers a political pathway proposed by Arab states through the recovery reconstruction plan outlined in the Cairo Declaration and the proposal of the Global Alliance for the Implementation of the Two-State Solution. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Philippe, for these introductory remarks. Let me open now the floor to question. I see first, well, the first in front of us, Jérémy Lange, Radio France Internationale.
Bonjour. Merci pour votre conférence de presse. Deux questions pour vous en français, également pour la RTS. Si je vous suis bien, vous insistez sur le fait que l'UNRWA a pu poursuivre son travail malgré tout dans les territoires occupés, exception faite peut-être de Jérusalem-Est. J'ai envie de vous demander, malgré tout, qu'est-ce que vous n'arrivez plus à faire depuis que les lois de la Knesset ont été mises en place fin janvier? Il y a quand même des choses que vous n'arrivez plus à faire. On a l'impression que ce n'est pas business as usual, vous voyez ce que je veux dire. Mais concrètement, qu'est-ce qui a changé? Qu'est-ce que vous ne pouvez plus faire depuis 3 semaines, depuis un peu plus d'un mois maintenant? Et la deuxième question, c'est peut-être sur le volet suisse, bien évidemment. À chaque fois qu'on vous voit, il y a de nouveaux rebondissements. La dernière fois, c'était la commission du politique extérieure du Conseil des États qui a de nouveau voté pour que la Suisse coupe le financement de l'UNRWA. Le national s'était prononcé auparavant. Est-ce que vous continuez d'être déçu par la position de la Suisse envers l'UNRWA?
Oui. Proche, d'accord. Pour la première question, on continue d'opérer à Gaza, on continue d'opérer en Cisjordanie. Toutes nos écoles sont ouvertes, à l'exception de celles qui se trouvent dans des zones de conflit ou d'opérations dites de sécurité. Nos centres de santé sont ouverts. Ce que nous n'arrivons plus à faire, avec l'absence d'une présence d'internationaux, c'est ce rôle de coordination et de déconfliction avec les autorités militaires israéliennes. Et donc, du coup, notre personnel palestinien se sent beaucoup plus vulnérable, beaucoup plus exposé à de possibles abus aux différents points de passage ou de la part de l'armée israélienne. Parce que jusqu'à maintenant, lorsqu'il y avait des opérations de sécurité, nous avions nos collègues internationaux qui étaient constamment en contact avec les représentants du COGAT pour atténuer et maintenir un environnement opérationnel en période de crise. Donc cet élément-là, ça rend aujourd'hui notre personnel beaucoup plus exposé, beaucoup plus vulnérable, et plus vulnérable aussi aux intimidations. Par contre, bon, il y a deux lois. Il y a une loi qui interdit la présence et les activités sur le territoire souverain de l'État d'Israël. Jérusalem-Est, occupée, est considérée comme faisant partie du territoire souverain par l'État d'Israël. Donc cette première loi, il l'applique pour la municipalité de Jérusalem. Raison pour laquelle nous n'avons plus de présence aujourd'hui dans le quartier général de Jérusalem-Cisjordanie, qui reste malgré tout un bâtiment des Nations Unies. Et puis nous avons quelques écoles et centres de santé qui continuent d'opérer pour l'instant. Ils opèrent aussi parce qu'il n'y a pas d'alternative présente pour ces enfants. Il y a eu, il y a quelques semaines, le procureur général qui avait répondu à une pétition à la Cour de justice israélienne et qui expliquait en fait que dans le cadre de Jérusalem, les autorités municipales n'étaient pas prêtes à être l'alternative pour ces enfants, que cela prendrait encore un peu plus de temps. Par contre, pour ce qui est de la Cisjordanie et de Gaza, la loi qui s'applique, c'est la loi du non-contact. Alors le principal problème, c'est celui que je vous ai décrit avant. Par rapport à Gaza, vous avez vu ce que l'agence a pu faire, principalement dans une situation où il n'y a pas d'obstacle, comme ça a été le cas pendant ces dernières semaines. Malheureusement, il y a un risque de retourner un peu à la case de départ. À la deuxième question, réponse très courte. Oui, je suis déçu qu'il n'y ait pas encore de décision. Je sais que nous avons de nombreux soutiens, mais nous avons aussi de nombreux, détracteurs. Je regrette qu'une agence comme la nôtre devient un peu le collatéral de cette polarisation du conflit israélo-palestinien. Mais pour moi, il n'y a pas de rationnel de vouloir éliminer une agence comme la nôtre en l'absence d'une alternative. Et le faire en l'absence d'une alternative ne peut que, renforcer le désespoir et la souffrance des populations palestiniennes. Et l'alternative, dernier point, ce n'est pas une ONG, ce n'est pas une autre organisation des Nations Unies. La seule alternative viable, ce sont des institutions palestiniennes capables, qui ont toute l'autonomie nécessaire, des institutions palestiniennes d'un État palestinien. Et c'est la raison pour laquelle, au lieu de se concentrer à vouloir faire disparaître une agence, je préférerais que l'on se concentre sur et que l'on mette toutes nos énergies et nos efforts pour une solution politique.
Absolument. Emma Farge, Reuters.
Good afternoon. Thank you for briefing us again. I wanted to ask you about your concerns about the impact of the electricity cut in Gaza. Where could this lead and with what consequences? And secondly, please, we heard from the Israeli ambassador to the UN in Geneva earlier today that they're actively seeking to replace UNRWA's work in Gaza and divvy that work up amongst UN agencies or NGOs. Can you see any signs that they're succeeding, and how would you react to this effort in general? Thank you.
Thank you. On the first question, I mean, it's too early to comment, because if I'm not completely mistaken, electricity was resumed only a few days ago. And otherwise, people were living on generator, diesel. So the impact might not be as big. I'm much more concerned right now about the impact of a total blockage, or the impact cutting water would have, and plus the fact that there is no food or fuel entering into the Gaza Strip anymore. We have already seen the first signs of increased prices on the market. That's the first reaction. And then we have also seen a number of people in the north going to the south, because services cannot really be resumed in the north. And obviously, with the blockage, you can even less resume these services. So I think the more we go ahead, the more we will see the impact increasing on the population. And obviously, the risk after a while is that we go back to a situation we experienced months ago about deepening hunger in the Gaza Strip. So it needs to be closely monitored, but I mean, the blockage needs to be lifted. we have seen also during this ceasefire, because you remember maybe last time we met here, we were talking about who is responsible of the little aid reaching the people. But in reality, if you have no obstacle on humanitarian assistance, we have seen that we can significantly increase, as it has been the case during this period. On the question about is UNRWA replaceable or not, I think I tried to answer in French, so we'll do it in English now. UNRWA is replaceable by empowered, prepared Palestinian institution. We are within a Palestinian state. We are replaceable by public institution. You have absolutely no UN agency geared to provide direct public services at scale like we do. We used to have in Gaza only 300,000 girls and boys in our schools. There is no agency which provide at scale education for the entire primary and secondary school. Only a functioning Ministry of Education or public institution will be able to do this. The same applies with the primary health. Now the mandate has to be, Israel proposed NGOs and UN to take over the mandate of UNRWA, but this ultimately it's a discussion to take place at the UN General Assembly.
Thank you, Philippe. Nina Larsson, AFP. Then I'll take a few from the platform.
Yeah, thank you for taking my question. I had a similar question. So I just wanted to follow up just on the issue of other agencies stepping in, because the Israeli ambassador was saying that there was a lot of work going on trying to convince the other agencies to come in. I don't know if there's been any signs that you've seen. It was a bit unclear from what he was saying whether any agencies have actually said that there was a possibility of doing anything, and if that's something that concerns you. And then also, you mentioned the issue with the lack of contact and the fact that your staff has been left more vulnerable in Gaza because of that. Have you seen an increase in your staff members being killed or injured because of that lacking contact? Thank you.
Sorry. Yes. The first question was on. Oh yes, sorry. Yes. Yes, I forgot the answer, but sorry. It depends on how you describe the mandate of UNRWA. UNRWA is primarily a human development organization. It's not a humanitarian organization per se. We were expected to provide, human development services to the Palestinians until the day there is a political solution. Now, I guess the Israeli ambassador refers to the acute humanitarian emergency right now. Who can bring trucks into Gaza? Now, I have always been very clear that other agencies can bring trucks into Gaza. When it comes to food distribution, we have an agency called World Food Programme, which is the main food and cash provider of the United Nations. UNRWA had and still has a predominant role because of the incredible footprint that we have in Gaza. And if I compare our footprint with all the other UN agencies together, they do not even represent, 5% of our presence. Now, when it comes to the acute humanitarian emergency, yes, of course, you will find other NGOs and UN agencies who could scale up. But the real question is, who will provide primary health? Who will provide education? I do believe education is a top priority in Gaza. We have seen that through the online registration, there is a first for education. Beside the Ministry of Education of the PA, and UNRWA. There is no UN agency nearest to that. We have UNICEF, UNESCO, they are technical advisors, they are not direct provider of education services. So again, we can be replaced, but we can be replaced by functioning public institution.
And on the other question,
Which
Sorry, on the, if you've seen an increase in injuries or
yes,
killed?
no, not on people injured or people killed, but we have seen an increased number of incidents involving intimidation, bullying, pressure, staff being called to go to the police station or to go for long investigation, being asked how come you are working for a terrorist organization. So I would say since these laws are in place, there is much more anxiety within our staff. And the absence of the international staff does not really help, because we cannot help to mitigate this kind of situation in situ.
Okay, let me go to the platform. We've got Associated Press, another one, BBC. I'll start with Associated Press, Jamie Keaton.
Thank you, Mr. Lazzarini, for coming to see us. I wanted to, I'm not quite sure that my two colleagues got a really clear answer from you about whether or not you're seeing any difference in this push from Israel to try to revert it to other. Is there? Let me frame it another way. Some of the major United Nations organizations that provide aid into the region are funded by the United States, which is of course a great ally of Israel. So, are you seeing any political pressure being put upon any agencies have any agencies faced any political pressure via Israel or by the United States to try to move away from UNRWA? And if I could just slide in another one about the funding in general, I recall that you had hoped that the United States might resume its funding this spring. Of course, the administration has changed since then. Have you been able to find a significant amount of funding from other sources to make up for that loss?
Yeah. On the first question, I do not have evidence yet of, I would say, there have been political pressure, but I haven't seen yet any agency ready, in fact, to step into the mandate of the agency. We also keep hearing about different type of plans when it comes to the future of humanitarian assistance in Gaza. We have also heard about, dividing Gaza in different zones with, and basically having the Israeli government being more in control of the assistance, deciding basically who would receive what. So that would this would equate UN agencies as kind of third-party contractor. And obviously, this would also create a question or raise question about how principled the future of the humanitarian assistance could be in Gaza. So the pressure are not new per se, but there is a clear understanding within the UN that another agency cannot step in the absence of a mandate provided by the GA. Regarding the US funding, as you said, we waited March. I was hopeful that the funding might resume. It's clearly not the case. The funding landscape has completely changed, not only for UNRWA, but for the entire humanitarian and development community. I think colleagues sitting here in Geneva are very well aware about this. Now, I would say the alternative for an agency like ours, one, we continue to have a strong support from Europe, and number two, if we want the agency to survive, we need to have the agency within a political framework. The political framework is the one being proposed by the Arab countries, which would also mean that if this framework is adopted in the future and being the one being implemented, I would also expect increased contribution from this part of the world.
Thank you very much. Let's go to another one. See the Turkish news agency, Mohammed.
Yes, thank you so much, Alessandra. Thank you for these briefings. My question is, at the Arab League Summit, a decision adopted to reconstruct Gaza. You already mentioned that topic on your opening remarks, but I would like to hear you more. Does the United Nations support this plan? Thank you.
Support the plan, yeah. Short answer, yes, the United Nations support the plan. The Secretary General was in Cairo during the Head of State, League of Arab Head of State last week. The UN also, together with the World Bank and the European Union, has contributed to the damage assessment in the Gaza Strip. We talk about a need of $54 billion to fund this plan. Now, when it comes to an agency like ours, we would certainly not play the same role we used to play in the past. UNRWA cannot be involved in rebuilding houses, entire neighborhood in the camp, but we would primarily focus on rehabilitating our schools and our health center, and then we will also primarily focus on what I would call the software, meaning the education and primary health part of the agency.
Thank you very much. Imogen Fox, BBC.
Hello, Mr. Lazzarini. Thanks for taking my question. I wonder if you could kind of let us know your thoughts on the blockade. What's it actually about? We've just heard while you've been talking, the ICRC has put out a statement also warning of a really deteriorating humanitarian situation. Is this blockade, is it designed to encourage other humanitarian agencies to step in? Is it maybe to show a sign that there's no point returning at all to northern Gaza? I mean, obviously you're aware that there have been other proposals, notably from the United States, about what a future Gaza could look like and who might live there.
I don't know what the real intent is, but whatever the intent is, it's clearly a weaponization of humanitarian aid into Gaza. If you block all the entry point, you create a situation of where you use basic humanitarian assistance and food as an instrument to achieve a political goal or a military goal, which is contrary to any international humanitarian norm. So I think the intention we will know certainly in the coming days or coming weeks. We hear in the media that it has a political intent. Will it achieve it or not? No one really knows at this stage. But basically, we are back to a situation which prevailed at the beginning of the war, when there was a total siege imposed on Gaza, and we have seen the situation deteriorating very, very quickly. That's about the Gaza or the electricity? Okay, so just to correct one point, because I said the electricity might not have such a big impact, and basically I'm reminded that it will reduce significantly the availability of drinking water. And basically, the desalination plant, which benefit from this electricity, was producing drinking water for 600,000 people. So that would be a direct impact on the population.
Thank you very much. Okay, I'll continue. Dina, you are, can you say for whom you are doing this? Thank you. C'est Etienne.
Thank you, Alessandra. Thanks for the opportunity. My question is about Syria and Lebanon, how your program in both countries are affected with the financial crisis, and concerning Syria with the huge political changes we've seen in the last 3 months. How is the situation there for UNRWA, and are you cooperating with the new government? Thank you.
Thank you. You know, the financial situation has eroded our services now for some time, and they have eroded services in the context of Lebanon. There is absolutely no doubt. Talking about Lebanon, we just made a study indicating that the main source of income for 70% of the Palestinian refugees is the cash distribution of the agency. Now, our financial situation is such that we sometimes have to skip a cycle of distribution. It has also an impact on other type of services, such as the hospitalization cost in Lebanon, but it had also an impact on education, because we could not recruit more teachers or open more classes, but we had to increase the number of kids in existing classes. When it comes to Syria, I haven't been yet to Syria. I intended to go, couldn't go, will go very soon. For the time being, we are not we have not been really impacted by the overall situation. Activities are being run as they used to be run. The primary problem we're confronted with in Syria is also of financial nature.
Can we take another question or two?
Sure.
Isabel Sacco, EFE, a Spanish news agency.
Yes, yeah. Yes, good afternoon. Do you believe that the idea... Sorry, yes. Do you think that the idea put forward by Israel weeks ago of transferring Palestinians to third countries has been really put aside by the government? Do you think that it could re-emerge at some point? And in relation to this, given the international geopolitical situation and the resources that Europe, you mentioned Europe as a group of countries that you would like to see come with more funds, but now the Europeans are more worried, concerned by the resources going to defense. So in that sense, do you think that it would be really possible to make Gaza a place where life is possible?
That's a very good question. Life in Gaza has been unbearable for some time, already before October 2023, but became hell after October 2023. And when you see how devastated the Gaza Strip is, I do believe it's definitely a legitimate question. But Gaza is, where the Gazans come from, and that's their land. And they see their future in their own land. So the question is, how do we make Gaza livable again, basically? Are the plan to transfer people aside? No, they are never completely aside. They bump up. There are certainly members in the government who basically hope that such a plan or agenda be implemented or fully implemented. But we all know what that would mean. Forced transfer. Forced transfer is cleansing, an ethnical cleansing of a population. So I really hope that what has been now proposed by the Arab state, endorsed by the Arab League, endorsed by the OSCE, will become the alternative plan, because through this plan, that means also we keep the unity of the future of a Palestinian state.
I'll take a last question there. Can you please introduce yourself? Yes, thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. My name is Satoko Adachi from Yomiuri Shimbun, a Japanese newspaper. Could you give us your observation of how the Palestinian people are affected by the Israel is doing in the region, given the fact that there is a blockade of humanitarian aid in Gaza and intensified campaign aiming at the annexation of the West Bank, and then also there is a violation of the ceasefire in Lebanon, and then also de facto annexing a large part of southern Syria?
I don't understand everything of your question, but yes. But basically, your question is about how the Israeli military operation are impacting the Palestinians across the region. Correct? Yeah. You know, I described what's going on in the West Bank. We have seen one of the longest security operations taking place since the Second Intifada. We have seen the largest displacement of population since 1967. What's unfolding in the West Bank is unfortunately completely overshadowed by the situation in Gaza or elsewhere. But it's an extraordinary, worrisome situation. We have also, by any account, by the means being involved for this security operation, we have seen for the first time since the Second Intifada tanks reappearing in refugee camps, for example. And then I described about Gaza. When it comes to Lebanon, the Palestinian refugees have not been the most affected by the war, except that they suffer of their unique situation, their socio-economic situation, because they are not integrated in the economy in Lebanon. And the Palestinian refugees have basically no real alternative beside an agency like ours, and they are highly reliant. When it comes to Syria, the Palestinian refugees have not really been central in any of the development we have observed over the last few months. We have been more in the periphery, and that's the reason why our operation have basically continued almost uninterrupted.
Philippe, thank you very, very much. Let's conclude here and give you a little bit of a rest after this very intense afternoon. I'd like to thank everyone for having followed this press conference, and above all, Commissioner General Lazzarini for coming and briefing the Geneva press. Please, Philippe, come back again anytime. We will be happy to have you here. Thank you very much to everyone, and have a nice evening. Thank you.
Merci.
Merci à toi.